Hello, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and distinguished leaders. A very good evening to you all and welcome to HSBC Presents CNBC TV18 SME Champions Awards Masterclass. Right here, we unite to explore the depths of empowerment in the realm of small and medium enterprises within the context of sustainable growth in global supply chains. In an era of interconnectedness and interdependence, SMEs stand as the backbone of our economies. Their agility, innovation, and entrepreneurial spirit not only drive economic growth, but also serve as catalysts for social progress. Tonight, as we convene under the banner of empowerment, we embark on a journey to unlock the full potential of these dynamic entities. The core theme of this masterclass, Empowering SMEs for Sustainable Growth in Global Supply Chains, encapsulates the essence of our collective mission. We recognize that SMEs play a pivotal role in the intricate web of global supply chains, often facing unique challenges and opportunities. Therefore, it becomes imperative for us to empower them with the knowledge, resources, and networks necessary to thrive in this ever-evolving landscape. Throughout this masterclass, we will delve deep into the strategies, insights, and best practices that pave the way for sustainable growth. From leveraging technology and innovation to fostering partnerships and promoting inclusivity, we will explore avenues that not only drive profitability, but also nurture resilience and sustainability. But before we delve into the sessions, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to HSBC for spearheading this initiative. HSBC, a global banking giant, continually demonstrates its commitment to fostering economic empowerment by championing initiatives that uplift small and medium enterprises. Through strategic partnerships, financial support, and tailored solutions, HSBC plays a pivotal role in empowering SMEs to thrive within global supply chains. Ladies and gentlemen, with no further ado, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Julius Vijay, Senior VP and Senior Team Manager, HSBC Commercial Banking, to deliver the opening address for tonight's masterclass.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you all to this curated masterclass on sustainable growth in supply chains as part of CNBC TV18 SME Champion Awards powered by HSBC. India currently hosts 63 million SMEs with projections indicating an anticipated growth of 75 million in the coming years. During the fiscal year 2022-2023, SMEs played a pivotal role, contributing over 30% of India's GDP and accounting for 44% of the country's total exports. SMEs also contributed approximately 36% of India's manufacturing output. 20 years ago, the word sustainability was almost completely synonymous with eco-friendliness. Today, it is a much more holistic term. Green, transparent, and circular supply chains are all components of a modern, sustainable supply chain. Sustainable supply chains work by setting consistent standards. In order for a strategic supply chain sustainability plan to work, it is important that benchmarks, targets, guidelines are clearly spelled out. They must then be shared and agreed among all the stakeholders and suppliers across the chain. Sustainable supply chain provides wide benefits of cost control, brand loyalty, reputation, and minimizing risk and vulnerability. Contribution of SMEs to sustainable growth in supply chains are integral to shaping the interconnected world we live in. In this dynamic landscape, SMEs find abundant opportunities from accessing new markets to diversifying revenue streams. However, challenges such as complexity in supply chains, prohibitive costs for sustainability, lack of an established sustainable framework, inadequate resources for implementation, non-availability of suitable technologies are ever present. Today, through this masterclass, we aim to unravel these complexities and illuminate the path forward. The increasing adoption of digital technologies, incorporation of artificial intelligence, and partnering with right domain experts will present them with a plethora of opportunities and promote future growth in this sector. And this is where an institution like HSBC, which has presence in over 62 plus markets, can play a pivotal role in empowering the SMEs in India. We at HSBC see SMEs as emerging corporates of tomorrow. Through our tailored financial solutions, we are fully digital and a vast global network. We strive to be the catalyst that propels SMEs towards success in their international endeavors. Our initiatives and programs are crafted to be your steadfast companions on this journey to open up opportunities. Lastly, today's masterclass is not just an event. It is a platform for knowledge exchange, collaboration, and best practice sharing. We encourage active participation, discussions, and the sharing of experiences. It is through such interactions that SMEs can have insights from industry experts and fellow entrepreneurs, paving the way for confidence and success in the global arena. In the spirit of collaboration and learning, let us embark on this SME Masterclass journey together. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to an enriching and enlightening session.
Thank you, Mr. Julius, for your encouraging words and for getting this evening off to a rousing start. Ladies and gentlemen, as we delve into the transformative realm of future mobility and battery storage, it's a privilege to introduce our esteemed guest, Mr. Ramar Sundaram, the Chairman and CEO of Global Aerospace Technologies. With his extensive expertise in pioneering sustainable solutions within the aerospace industry, Mr. Sundaram brings invaluable insights to today's discussion. Let's give him a warm round of applause as he delivers the keynote address for the evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks HSBC, CNBC TV18 for giving an invitation to speak on this very important event to benefit the SMEs in large. Now, today my speech will focus on importance of green finance and sustainable practices for SMEs. Today I stand before you to shed light on the critical aspect of economy. SMEs business form the backbone of our global economy, contributing significantly to employment, innovation, and economic growth. However, SME journey towards sustainability often faces challenges. Today, I will emphasize why green finance and sustainable practices are critical for SMEs and how they drive positive change. Significance of SMEs, economic engine. SME account for a substantial share of employment and GDP is the most in most countries. They foster entrepreneurship, create jobs, and drive local economies. Innovative hubs, SMEs, one agile and innovative. They introduce novel products, services, and technologies shaping our future. Challenges faced by SMEs, access to finance. SME often struggle to secure adequate financials, that is traditional lenders may perceive, then risky due to size and lack of collateral. Resource constraint. Limited resources hinder their ability to invest in sustainable practices, research and development. Why green finance is needed? Green finance is a game changer. Then what is the green finance? It refers to financial products and services that support environmentally friendly initiatives. It channels capital towards sustainable projects, including those undertaken by SMEs. It is crucial for the SMEs because risk mitigation in green finance, it reduces the environmental risk, making SMEs more attractive to the investors and the lenders. Cost savings. Sustainable practices lead to cost reduction over time. Energy efficient process, waste reduction and responsible sourcing enhance profitability. And SMEs market access, green credentials open doors to new markets, and case motors who is priorities and sustainability. Regulatory compliance. So SMEs worldwide are encouraging green practices through the incentives and the regulations, and SMEs must adapt to the remaining sustainable practices for the SMEs. In this, one of the main thing, energy efficiency, implement the energy sourcing measures such as LED lighting, efficient machinery and renewable energy sources. Circular economy. Embrace circular business models that minimize the waste and promote the recycling. And the supply chain sustainability, collaborate with the suppliers committed to ethical and sustainable practices. Employees' well-being, prioritize employee health, safety and work-life balance. Success stories are organic textile SME, adopted organic cotton sourcing, reduced water usage and wastage, attracted eco-conscious customers. Case study 2, solar panel manufacturing, secured green financing for the expansion, increased production capacity, contributed to a clean energy transition. So I conclude that SME play a vital role in our economic landscape. By integrating green finance and sustainable practices, they can thrive, contribute to the environmental stewardship and create a better world for the generation to come. Let us support and empower our SMEs on the journey towards sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sundaram, for enlightening us with those insights. Now, as we navigate the complex terrain of global commerce, it's increasingly evident that our actions today shape the sustainability of tomorrow. Against the backdrop of environmental imperatives and economic interconnectedness, the notion of global green governance has risen to the forefront of policy discussions worldwide. In the upcoming session, we will gather a delve into the intricacies of this discourse, particularly focusing on policy perspectives when it comes to sustainable supply chains. So let's deep dive into the policies shaping the sustainability landscape, offering invaluable insights into how regulatory frameworks influence the trajectory of businesses and ecosystems alike. Without any delay, I would like to invite our panelists onto the dais. We have with us Mr. Kaviraj Nair, CEO, Office of Institutional Advancement at IIT Madras. Mr. S. Chandramohan, Director and Group President, Finance and Investment at TAFE. And Mr. Vaibhav Gupta, Director and Region Head, HSBC Business Banking. A warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Gentlemen, firstly, thank you so much for joining us. It is always exciting to talk about MSMEs, sustainability, moving technology forward, especially in these times that we find ourselves in. The last 3 years have changed the way we look at supply chain. It's changed the way we look at the ways of doing business itself, especially given the fact that sustainability is such a crucial component of the way businesses are run today. I would also like to let you know that we will open the floor for questions towards the end of the panel discussion, so do keep a few in mind. I'm sure these gentlemen would love to have them all answered. But let me start with you, Mr. Kaviraj. With SMEs playing such a vital role today, especially when it comes to global supply chain, how do you think institutions like IIT Madras, can in fact collaborate with these enterprises to foster innovation and sustainability as far as their operations are concerned?
Thank you for that question. In fact, as you rightly mentioned, today's SMEs are going to be the global corporations of tomorrow, right? And an educational institution like IIT Madras has a very critical role to play in helping nurture these SMEs, right? And I can talk more about that during the course of this discussion, but at the high level, let me talk about two or three areas. One is in terms of teaching. IIT Madras is known for capacity building, right? So capacity building is clearly the first area, where we will be able to train talents who will be able to help SMEs in terms of developing technologies, in terms of implementing various solutions and all of that. So that's like a really large area. And this could be in various areas. It could be in waste reduction, or it could be in energy optimization, or it could be in water conservation, or it could be in renewable energy integration, or myriads of areas, right? So capacity building is very clearly an area. Second is, of course, research, where we can do joint product development or joint project areas in any of these things. Or it could be in terms of providing, customized solutions, or let me say a few more other areas like translating technology. So what is the challenge that an SME usually face? It does not have the wherewithal, be it commercial or financial or domain expertise like a large organization has got, right? That's where an academic institution like IIT Madras will be able to play a role. It will be able to develop technologies which can then be up to a certain level of maturity, like technology readiness level. It can go up to like level 3, from level 3 to level 6. We are able to kind of help, with the help of some external partners, and then these SMEs can further develop that, right? We can also help channelize financing for them. Again, I'm happy to talk more about that later. And the third part is policy and advocacy. Maybe I'll, speak more about this after the others.
No, absolutely. In
right?
fact, I can testify to most of what you've said.
Sure.
The IIT Madras Research Park itself is a testament to the kind of academy-industry partnership that you see every day, especially when it comes to smaller companies, startups, and the kind of work that happens there, especially at their early stage. But, Mr. Chandramohan, let me quickly, come on to you. As far as India's long-term vision for sustainable growth is concerned, if you could help our audience understand, what are the strategies that you think SMEs and agricultural stakeholders can really embrace as far as, adopting sustainable practices and thereby contributing to the country's development goals? Is there a cheat sheet in terms of strategies involved?
Thank you, Judy, for asking this question. Instead of talking about, what can we think of a strategy, let me just share with you what we have done in TAFE. As far as, SMEs is concerned, maybe let me come to you later. For us, the farmers are the most important customer. So we started basically a digital connect called JFarm Services almost 6 years back. Today, what it does is basically connect the marginal small farmers who don't have tractors with the farmers who have tractors. Today, this site has got 1.2 crores of farmers, out of which 1.03, if I can precise, are the farmers who are small and marginal, and the balance 17 lakhs are the renters who actually have tractors and who can actually hire the tractors as marginal farmers. We have so far cultivated in this past 6 years, we're happy to tell you, almost 1.68 crores of acres of land. And most importantly, out of this, almost 70 lakhs are the very, very marginal farmers. And the renters have earned an income of 2,200 crores in the past. I think the bankers will be surprised to note this, the past 6 years. And this is how, in our opinion, we have also financed the
Absolutely.
farmers.
And that's a testament, in fact, to these partnerships that continue to bloom and grow from your
then,
perspective.
what we also do, we also do is basically we connect these farmers to the FPOs and who are able to buy the products at a much better price, I would say, as compared to the farmers who would have otherwise sold it in the normal course. So I think, this is a strategy which we are looking at. And I think we would like to continue to, of course, in the COVID time, we offered it free of cost and, really help the marginal farmers. And I think we would like to grow this in a sustainable manner. It's one of the strategies we can talk about it.
Absolutely. And, I'm really glad, Mr. Chandramohan, that you bring up revenue and you bring up money because, like it or not, money makes the world go round, sustainability initiatives aside. And that brings me to Mr. Vaibhav. Everyone likes hearing from the banker, and that's something that I've always picked up at each of these conferences. So do tell me, Mr. Vaibhav, even as SMEs increasingly seek to align themselves with sustainability goals, how do you at HSBC Business Banking plan to support these enterprises in accessing green finance, especially when it comes to investing in environmentally friendly options and technology that keeps supply chain at the core of it all?
So I think it's a very good question. And I think the first and the foremost aspect, and I think that's the reason of why we are doing this masterclass here, is to actually make you all think who are part of that ecosystem, whether you are SME or whether you're part of the global supply chain, is to actually start thinking about it. I mean, financing is not an issue, let me tell you. Okay. I think the whole idea of this session is to make you aware that how the world is now moving towards in the supply chains aspect.
Right.
Okay. And I think this is now what we are picking up when we speak to some of our global large corporates. And I think if we were to connect the dots, India, I think, hopefully in future is going to become a huge platform for global supply chain vendors. And increasingly what we are seeing is that large corporates who want Indian SMEs to be their vendors to be sustainability certified.
Right.
Okay. Now, to be sustainability certified, you have to have first that mindset and start thinking about it. Once you start thinking about it, then you actually need to adapt practices, which will make you and lean towards that sustainability. And, and I think today it might just appear more as a fad, but I can tell you in real short time, it's going to be reality.
Right, right.
Okay, because the way global supply chains are now moving. And I think my urge to people present here or whosoever are viewers is to start thinking about that how SMEs can themselves start preparing for future in terms of become sustainability. I think financial institution support is there. I don't think so that anybody have any doubt. If you're a good company, finance is anyways not a problem.
Right.
Okay, but if you start thinking about investing towards it, you need certain expenditure. Bank is happy to support.
Absolutely. And I think from fad to reality, that transition is no doubt something that must certainly be paid attention to, especially given the fact that, like you said, sustainability certification will be the be-all and end-all of the ways SMEs go on to run businesses. But, it's very interesting that you bring that up because a very critical part of that transition, I'm sure you will agree, is when it comes to technology transfer and developing new technology itself. So I have to ask you, Mr. Kaviraj, when it comes to technology transfer, I know for a fact that institutions like IIT Madras, we just discussed, have played such an important role in enabling these companies. But how do you see technology transfer initiatives from institutes like yours shape up really when it comes to helping SMEs adopt sustainability practices and adopting the technology itself henceforth?
Wonderful question. I think that's a very important aspect. I can give you some specific examples which will kind of elucidate this further, right? So in terms of technology, there are multiple aspects. So one is, as I mentioned, developing technologies together. Second is managing the IP. So IITs would have developed technologies which, some of the SMEs will find it good to or relevant to access them by way of a simple licensing agreement or whatever it is, right? So let's talk about a few examples. Like say one of the large banks within the country. So they supported an energy assessment cell, setting up of an IEAC within the institute. So what it does is that the institute has now expertise, like through faculty and research scholars and others professionals. They will go and do energy audits for SMEs, in fact MSMEs, right? And will identify areas of energy savings and will kind of give recommendations. And our commitment to the other company which supported through the CSR funding is that more than, say, X percentage, 50% or whatever percentage of these recommendations will be implemented, right? And this clearly leads to several hundreds or even thousands of crores of savings of direct money for the MSMEs over a period of time, right? And there is a repository, huge repository of anonymized data which can then be used for further, expert advice and other things. That's one. Second is a green corridor project that one of our faculty members has undertaken. So through that, like grid independent, standalone, solar rooftop, technology is being tested. It's supported by another company through its CSR funding. And again, that, our results from that again can be used.
Right.
Right. A third example could be like, there are a couple of more examples quickly I'll mention which are relevant. There's a large retail chain company globally, right? They have set up a center of excellence in sustainable retail supply chain.
Right.
Right. The idea is to see how you can use IoT, how you can use various of this, digitalization technologies, everything in optimizing this whole supply chain. So there are technologies getting developed in this area. There's another retail chain, again globally large one, which kind of helps in supporting the MSMEs with getting onto their platform for the marketplace.
Right.
Right. There are many of such areas that that are available, water related technologies which are getting developed, which I think either it can be a joint problem addressing together with the MSME, or whatever we have developed can be used by the MSME.
Absolutely.
And the last part of it is what I mentioned. Usually what happens in IIT kind of education institution is we do research up to TRL level 3. That's where where it is still at a much, nascent stage. And that is usually not, that can be taken up by a large corporate, but not by an MSME. So we have come up with a venture studio. What the venture studio does is, with the help of an external consultant or with the help of an external somebody who is willing to, a funder, right? And we are able to, again, channelize the funding from our alumni and various corporates into this. This, from TRL level 3 to level 6, we are able to develop. Right. At which point, it becomes much easier for an MSME kind of an organization to look at it and commercialize it.
Right.
Right? The previous one, only a large organization would be able to do. So there are a lot of areas where we can actually work with.
And Mr. Kaviraj, what strikes me as really interesting is the very fact that there's so much availability when it comes to platforms and technology only underlines and emphasizes the absolute imperative need to continue academic industry partnerships, much like the one you have at IIT Madras. But speaking of funding itself, Mr. Chandramohan, I have to come to you. In your opinion, how do you think agricultural enterprises can use the AgriSure scheme's funds to incorporate sustainable practices? And what impact do you think this could have on where they feature as far as global supply chains are concerned?
Yeah, I think this AgriSure Trust is a very interesting fund which is being proposed by the government recently. Basically, I think it is a 750 crore fund, 250 crore coming from the ministry, 250 crore coming from NABARD, and balance 250 crore from the institutional people. Basically, to fund to begin with, I think some 85-90 startups focused on technology, focused on very specifically improving the productivity, etc., with reference to agriculture. I think you may be aware that as far as precision farming is concerned, India is still in a very nascent stage. While certain amount of activity has taken place in commercial crops like wines and all that, but in the traditional crop, we still have a long way to go.
Right.
Most of the startups are focused on, I would say, supply chain and to some extent in trading. But startups, as far as precision is concerned, in India is still at a very nascent stage. So I think this fund objective would be to focus upon these type of startups, which of course farmers certainly would not be able to afford at this point of time. So we have to support them in terms of like this custom hiring centers. So that's the secondary part of it. First, the precision agriculture itself has to come. For example, we have a tie-up outside the country, of course, in terms of very simple, I wouldn't say simple, it is basically very, very useful straight auto steering systems, which would enable the farmer to drive the tractor absolutely, if you say point A to B, it will enable the farmer to drive exactly in that place. And as a result of which, the productivity would go up significantly, and as a result of which, the input cost also will come down. We have also got some other tie-up which would enable basically to use the precision farming as a service, which you can talk about from, I would say, right from soil to harvesting. Take any intermediate activity, whether it is, let's say, planting or whether it is spraying, whatever activity, this startup would be able to do it because they're able to connect with various types of tractors. So I think, more and more such startups, in our opinion, should come to India, which is a matter of time. So once we start working with these type of startups outside the country, because outside the market is huge. So therefore, I think it will take time, but I think this initiative is a very laudable initiative.
Right.
I'm sure more will follow in the
Absolutely. But, I'm sure most of you agree that the one reason that, we're doing such a conclave and a masterclass to begin with is to foster the spirit of collaboration and partnerships, especially with relevant stakeholders. So, Mr. Weber, I can't quite help but ask you, given how crucial stakeholder engagement is for so many SMEs, and especially those aiming to drive sustainability initiatives, what is HSBC Business Banking really doing in order to foster this collaboration between SMEs, suppliers, customers, technology providers, and even local communities, in a sense, to go about promoting sustainable practices and closing out crucial links in the global supply chain?
Yeah, so I think, as I mentioned in my previous talk, was that, that this is increasingly going to be a big theme going forward. So I think what we have done is from a preparedness perspective. So, you can go to our website. There is something called as a sustainability tracker. Okay, so there are certain questionnaire to come. You fill in that questionnaire. It will throw you result in terms of how well ready you are from a sustainability readiness perspective. Okay, so that's, I think, the first. The second thing is that we are in very soon time, I think probably in a month's time, we're going to announce, we are working with a very globally renowned sustainability certification firm. Okay? Because we realize that the moment you start having these sustainability certification, you actually have an edge over your other competitors in the same sector, in the same industry. Okay? So what we are tying up with that, globally renowned sustainability firm, because it's a certification. So what we are working with them is that we will introduce our SME customers and give them those, and we will absorb certain cost of that certification.
Right.
Okay. And I think that's, to me, is one of the, at least I have not heard any bank, doing this. So I think this would be, in my opinion, for us, shows the commitment which we have to encourage SMEs to be sustainability certified and also oriented.
Absolutely.
Okay, I must just tell, something that, I was speaking to my colleague, and certain jurisdictions in certain, like for Europe, there are proposals for laws coming in to make it mandatory. Okay, so for example, there is a very active discussion which is happening on introducing carbon tax.
Right.
So if your products are not sustainable, you might be a carbon tax. Now, while people may think that, this is just a, right now investment which will not yield any result. But if you're not ready, then this tax would apply to you.
Absolutely.
If you are part of a supply chain which is exporting to Europe, you will have to soon be sustainability compliant and certified. And that's what our endeavor is to make SMEs, through our global network, through our global expertise, to make aware of how this is going to be a very, very important and a critical issue from a survival perspective going forward. It may not be an issue now, but I can tell you it's not far.
Right. And, in the spirit of that collaboration itself, and with all the talk about carbon tax, we see multiple, datelines and deadlines associated with going fully sustainable. And this even as the country heads towards 100 years of independence in a little over a score of years from now. So, in keeping with building India 2047, and Mr. Kaviraj, I have to ask you, how do you envision this spirit of collaboration playing out and panning out between government agencies, the academia, and the SMEs themselves when it comes to leveraging technology for sustainability growth? And do you think education institutions will play perhaps the chief role in making this collaboration happen?
Absolutely. I think education institutions definitely have a very crucial role in this, right? And when we talk about sustainable supply chains, there are 2 or 3 aspects that we look at. One is the financial sustainability, which talks about, the ROI from a long-term perspective. When you go digital, when you implement some of the sustainable solutions, how is it going to create a positive ROI over a period of in the long term, even if it means an upfront capex or any of those things, right? Second is the environmental sustainability, which is about reducing your wastage, reducing your emissions, and all of those part. And the third part, of course, is the social sustainability aspects, where you are talking about the workforce upskilling on one side, impacting the surrounding communities in the right way, creating sustainable villages, sustainable communities, where the water supply or the solar or the renewable uses, all of that is there, right? Yeah. And this also requires the multiple things. One is, as I mentioned, the technology part. Second is policy development, formulation. Absolutely. Right? It could be climate finance, or it could be any of these things which you spoke about in terms of the carbon taxes, which is going to be a reality, which is already a reality in many parts of the world, and all of that, right? So that is where a reputed organization like IIT Madras, which is pretty much neutral and only from an academic perspective, comes in place without any vested interest, right? So very clearly, we are able to anchor the conversation, the policy dialogues, bring all the people onto the same platform, be it government, industry, academic expertise, science and research, all scientists and researchers, all of them together, right? And we are able to enable a lot of dialogues, which is going to feed very positively into policy formulation. Absolutely. So I think we do a lot of those networking events. In fact, we have an IIT Madras recently launched a School of Sustainability, which is going to have initially 6 months, 6 weeks certification program, and then all of that, and then and then some minors for the BTech programs. Right. Professor Ashwin Mahalingam is leading that, and then starting 2025, we are planning to have a dual degree program in sustainability itself, where we will be developing and nurturing a lot of experts in this area, right? And these are all this is for the development of the adding to the nation building, right? Yep. Very clearly. And coming to your point, so we also plan to do a lot of international conferences, networking events, enabling and encouraging a lot of dialogues in this area. So an institute like IIT Madras can and does play a very crucial role in bringing different stakeholders onto the same platform and looking at problems in a very objective, with a lot of intellectual honesty, right? And in a very objective way, and trying to find out solutions.
And it's quite an impressive litany of initiatives that you have, in fact, on campus. So many of which have been written about in recent times as well. Just a reminder to our audiences, even before, even as we get the final word from the remainder 2 gentlemen on our panel, please keep your questions ready. We'll be happy to have a quick Q&A session as soon as we conclude this chat with our 3 gentlemen panelists here. Mr. Chandramohan, I have to ask you, given all that happens at TAFE, what do you think, given all your expertise, what is the company planning to do in order to sustain or help SMEs go about securing green financing options, especially when it comes to adopting sustainability and enhancing their individual competitiveness?
Yeah, what I think you may be aware of, the sustainability goes through 3 factors. One is scope 1, 2 is scope 2, and scope 3. Scope 1 is basically what you are consuming inside. Scope 2 is what you are purchasing and using inside, whether it could be diesel or whatever, or outside power. And scope 3 is basically connecting the suppliers. While, of course, we are focused on scope 1 and 2, but that is not enough. We know it well. And scope 3 is a very large area. Basically, to connect the suppliers and ensure that they have sustainability is a very, very large aspect. So what we thought was, we will, for the time being, not focus upon the tier 1 suppliers because they're all capable and they can do something on their own. So we thought we'll focus upon tier 2, and if there is any tier 3, we'll take it up also. So we actually go and educate. For example, today I can tell you there are some suppliers who are actually using 90% green energy. Right. There are suppliers who are basically net zero water. There are several suppliers who are basically recycling all the scrap of steel. There are suppliers who are basically using almost 75% of recyclable packaging. So why I'm giving this status is basically because we not only support them, we benchmark, guide them, monitor them, and measure them also. We have a long way to go on this. So we recently formed one very clear basically auto cluster, which would focus on sustainability. Right. So I think these type of initiatives over a period of time, we feel that would enable them to go for basically financing at a much cheaper rate. As far as the other aspect, nothing to do with financing, but as far as, farmers are very important, as I told you, they are the, customers for us. While we sell the tractors through dealers, through this, what can I say, the J-Farm initiative, we have introduced very, very low-cost technology because that is what is required for the marginal farmers. While precision technology, we also have drones, which we use it for basically very precise spraying and all that, which has certainly improved the productivity of the farmers. But what we require also to take care of this marginal farmers, for example, we have what is called hydroponics, which is a bit expensive as far as the customers are concerned, but we have introduced a very, very low-cost hydroponics, which is basically 20% of the normal cost, which consists of a simple, I would say, plastic trough and ultraviolet grown bag, wherein the water could be basically through drip irrigation, and the water usage would be basically 75% less as compared to a normal hydroponics. So, like this, we have several initiatives. We have, for example, sensor-based moisture analyzer. We have a sensor-based, of course, through mobile, we can control the use of water. So we have introduced certain technology for the benefit of the farmers also, which are all towards sustaining the green, I would say.
What do you know? Sustainability aside, I can't quite help but think these are AI farms that you could probably have in the not-so-distant future. But, Mr. Vaibhav, I have to give you the last word. You spoke about fad to reality. So do tell me, what are the innovations and technology that you at HSBC Business Banking go about adopting when it comes to helping SMEs effectively track, report, and improve their sustainability parameters at a large level?
No, so I think the 2 points which I already mentioned is the sustainability tracker, which helps you to understand that how well ready you are from that perspective, and also the certifications which we are working in the partnership. I think what we also are working with the global supply chain and global manufacturers, and as I mentioned earlier also, that India is going to become a major center because of the global supply chain challenges with other geographies are facing. Right. I think it's very important for the Indian SMEs to recognize this fact. In fact, when we start now analyzing balance sheets which come to us, we do take note of some of these aspects. Okay, whether it's a solar, whether it's a wind. Okay, how much portion of that energy is coming from this? Right. Okay, and we recently have started seeing a lot of action happening, and I think I must tell this, Tamil Nadu is at the forefront of this. Okay,
that does not come as a surprise, really.
Yeah. So I think that's a very, very welcome thing for this state, because this has always been, I think, one of the special and the big forte for this state. But I think now we see I met somebody yesterday in Chennai, and they say that their entire office, they don't pay any single money to the TNEB except for that monthly charges for the connection which they have to pay, because the entire energy for that factory is self-generated.
Right.
And this is a small, 100, 200 crore, 150 crore company. So I think that's the level of awareness which we are seeing.
Absolutely. Awareness and also innovation on the ground, which plays a critical role in bringing this to completion.
And there was this discussion about how the governments, if you see from FY 24-25, SEBI has mandated top 1,000 listed entities to ensure that they start mentioning in their balance sheets about their supply chain sustainability.
Right.
Okay, so I think it's a step towards in the right direction, where legislations and the regulator is also now insisting on to be supply chain. So as I said, as I've been saying this for last 25 minutes, it's just a matter of time. And I think if you ask my last word, I think the message is for everyone is start thinking about it.
Absolutely.
If you want to grab this opportunity, which is now India is presenting in terms of global supply chain, I think if you are sustainable certified, if you have thought of it, I can tell you will certainly be one step ahead of than the other players.
It's only a matter of time, and for all of our sakes, I can only hope that the time comes sooner rather than later. With that, thank you very much, gentlemen, but I will not let you go before I get you to take a few questions from members of our audience. I'm told a mic will be passed on. Do raise your hand, and I would urge you all to keep your question brief so that we can take many questions in a limited time. Do stand up while asking the question, and do end your question with a question mark so that we can, have the answer and take things forward. Can I have I think the gentleman in white over there would like to ask the first question. Can we have a mic over there? Please stand up, sir. We can have a mic sent to you. Yes. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And my name is Kumaran. I own a shipping company called Vanguard Logistics. It's been about 20 years old in this Indian soil. My question to Mr. IIT, the
Mr.
person from
Kaviraj.
IIT.
Yes.
Kaviraj. Sir, you produce intellectual, talented IITian every year, right? It's about 100 people you produce every year. 99% people working abroad, not in India. You know? All the energy, what you spend, intellectual, they suck everything from you. They go and, develop other countries, not in India. Nobody is remain in India. 99% of person who produce IIT, they all work in America or Europe, other part of India, right? When you give admission to the next time, please tell them to teach them sustainability, to contribute to Indian soil and make this country grow.
So your question is what, sir?
Ask them to give the admission, tell them to stay in India when finished.
Right, so your question is there a possibility? Hasn't the reverse brain drain already happened?
I just wanted to indicate that, when I was doing my BTech during the 95-99 period, maybe 90% of students used to go abroad for higher studies. Maybe
Not so much today, right?
Exactly. So only 10% used to kind of stay back at that point in time in India. The trend has been completely reversed. I can openly say that about 10% of the students now go abroad for higher studies.
Right.
And, doing PhD, those who want to remain in academia and become a professor or something like that. About 90% of the students are actually now staying back in India, leveraging the startup revolution. Many of them have got startups. We have so many people involved at undergraduate level itself in various startup projects. We have a full-fledged startup ecosystem. So they are actually wanting to be part of the nation-building process.
Yeah.
Or many of them are taking up jobs here. So the trend has completely been reversed.
I think, and India is in a growth trajectory similar to where the US was in the 80s. People do want to make
so in fact,
our growth story a reality.
In fact, I'm very happy to report that this year the professor in charge of the startups was mentioning that about 65 plus startups have registered inside from the students, which means that multiply by another 4 to 5 number of students assuming. About 400, 500 students are actually involved in startup activities because each team is like 4 or 5 people, right? Which is a very encouraging statistic.
No doubt, India is the place to be. Our next question, the gentleman over there in the second row, please. Right here. Yes, sir. Do stand up and ask your question. I urge you to keep it brief, please, and end with a question mark, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Myself, Satyamurthy, Finance Director representing Temple Steel. See, my question is, the sustainability, the carbon footprint, and ESG, all these are really great thing and good to have thing passed. But nowadays, as you said, even the top 100 listed companies in India actually struggling to understand and how to measure the carbon footprint. There is no well-known expertise, at least in India, who can guide them how do we measure and how do you report. Because different industries, different way of measuring it. Because different companies, where they get resources, what kind of process they are into, even if the bigger companies are having so much of challenge, when you talk about SMEs, actually
No, I think I understand your question. Is there a guidance mechanism when it comes to compliance on the sustainability front? Mr. Vaibhav, would you like to take that? Do you think there is scope for more hand-holding when it comes to compliance on sustainability?
No, certainly, and I think, again, going back to the points which I mentioned, I think that's the reason why we have developed this sustainability tracker.
Right.
Okay, that, to at least understand as to what level of preparedness you have.
On the compliance front, does it help?
And on the compliance side, as I said, that we are almost on the verge of closing a discussion with a globally renowned certification firm.
Right.
And that's the reason why we are doing it, because we feel that's the need of the hour. That people will not have no idea, and hence this certification would certainly help in terms of going through that process and then getting certified.
Right.
So which perhaps may be very individually difficult to find that certification provider. And that's what we as an organization or as an institution are trying to help the SMEs.
So the hand-holding is well and truly a work in progress, like I said, sooner than later, hopefully. I can take a couple of more questions. Can we have the gentleman over there in the blazer? Right there. We'll just have the mic passed on to you, sir. I urge you to keep it brief and end with a question mark, please.
I'll open it to the entire panel. What is the sustainability barriers and SMEs you see? And what are the practical solutions in green product lifecycle?
Practical solutions in green product lifecycle. Mr. Chandramohan, would you like to take that?
See, one of the greatest barrier as far as SME is concerned, and as he was talking, is basically finance. They have so many issues to grapple with. For them, basically to focus upon this is certainly going to be a little difficult. That's why, for example, to take on the previous question, it can be measured and it is being measured and it is certainly possible to measure. We are measuring it and there are a lot of experts who will support us also. I'm not talking only the big fours, there are several people who can help us to basically measure this. So one is basically availability of finance. Therefore, the corporates, the larger corporates have to go and support them. For example, that's why we decided that we will not focus upon tier one, as I mentioned. We'll focus upon the small scale people. And to begin with, first of all, how do they really ensure that from the energy point of view, if they are consuming, let us say 100% from outside, can we bring it down? Similarly, from the net water usage point of view, can we bring it down? Are they in a position to use the recyclable packaging? So these are all, I would say, initiatives. Of course, you'll be surprised to note there is one casting person in our small scale firm who's actually using 3D for making patterns, core box and all that. So you'll be amazed to note this. So there are also people who are actually on their own also working, and we're really surprised that, a small scale person is able to do this. So today, it's very important for the large corporates to support their vendors in particular to move, let's say, gradually to this phase. It can't be, just a one-day process. It will take quite a while, but we have to be at it.
So hand-holding must happen at all levels of even one supply chain. I can take one last question. Yes, the gentleman in front. I'm sure we'll have plenty of opportunities to network after, but yes, sir, go ahead. Speak right into the mic. It is active, yes.
I'm Sai Babu. I run an integrated environmental company. We employ around, it's a startup. So 8 years back, we started with 2-3 people. Currently, we employ around 1,300 people, pan-India. So we still, though we call it a startup, we still go with the bank funding. So, but of late, many of the startups or many of the investors or MSMEs, whomever wants to start the business, they feel that it's better to go with the venture capitalists than with the bankers. Because bankers, you chase the MSMEs. That's what generally people started feeling that. So what's your opinion?
VCs versus traditional routes of banking. Yeah. Do you feel it's an either or? Should it be an either or? It can be an and as well, right?
I think this will be a forever thing. Because, the way of how a VC looks at a company or a business is very different from what a bank looks at. Okay. I have a fiduciary responsibility towards my depositors who have given me money, and therefore I have to give them in a very prudential norms.
Someone asked you last time around whether banks can consider being VCs too.
Okay. And hence, as a bank, I cannot take equity stake.
Right.
I'm a debt provider. And therefore, when I give debt, I have to see the cash flows. Whether the debt which I've given to a business or to any person, is there a way to get the repayment back? Okay. Now, I think in terms of startups, that's the bit of a chicken and egg kind of a situation.
Right.
But I think as the startups ecosystem is maturing, okay, I think there is now a growing sense of realization that there is some trends which are moving towards in the right direction. And I think from that perspective, our organization has also started looking from that perspective.
Right.
But if somebody asks me a clean money to start a business, I think that would be a bit of a challenge. But what we have started is some innovative products, which I think I can discuss in details later, is transactional products. Okay, that I will give you money for a certain specific transaction. Okay, Because I mean, and that's what we have started a step in the right direction. Okay.
Right.
But I think there is still a way from a banking perspective to go. Unfortunately, it's a reality. The data suggests that the mortality rate in startup is huge.
It is massive, no
Okay.
doubt.
Banking system has come out of a very severe NPA thing. Okay.
It has.
And I think this would take some bit of a time for us, and I think the ecosystem would also mature. And I think it's a journey which is almost ongoing for everybody.
All right, it's an ongoing journey, and it's never neither or. As far as I'm concerned, I know for a fact that the traditional routes of funding still hold good, through our supply chain and various SMEs itself. On that note, Mr. Vaibhav, Mr. Chandra Mohan, and Mr. Kaviraj, great speaking to you. Thank you for helping with that engaging chat. A warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to the three gentlemen on our panel. Thank you very much, sirs. All right, thank you once again for that. Moving on, I'd like to introduce you to our next segment. Before we move on to the next segment, ladies and gentlemen, a very important announcement. The registrations for the SME Champion Awards are open. You can visit the website and participate in various categories. Should you be interested to know more, do check out our website, cnbctv18.com. That's cnbctv18.com to check out registrations for the awards itself. Now let's delve into the ever-evolving landscape of business where innovation stands as a beacon of progress, driving transformative change. At the same time, sustainability emerges as the cornerstone of responsible corporate conduct. The next chat that we will have explores innovative and sustainable business practices and how integrating sustainability into our core strategies can help businesses drive innovation while also reducing its environmental impact. From implementing circular economy models to adopting renewable energy solutions, our next speaker will share real-world examples and actionable insights that will showcase the tangible benefits of embracing sustainability in business operations. For this, I would like to welcome on stage Mr. Prakash Sankran, the Managing Director and CEO at Invoice Smart. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Mr. Sankran. Mr. Sankran, at the outset, thank you so much for joining us and for helping us with the chat. I know for a fact that there are going to be lots of questions, and like I did mention earlier, we will open the floor for questions at the end of our chat with Mr. Sankran here. But let me, start by asking you, if you could just help us all understand at the outset, what is TREDS and how is Invoice Smart, a digital marketplace, playing a role really in strengthening India's supply chain?
Okay. So to start on a light note, Mr. Kumar and I came back from Singapore after 6 years. So I'm in service of, the business here. TREDS is basically Trade Receivable Discounting System. It is a B2B digital marketplace, and it's very fast evolving. And Invoice Smart is actually the largest TREDS operator in the country. So to give you a sense of the volumes, pre-COVID, 3 years back, we were doing something like 3,700 odd crores in a full financial year. And currently, with the growth in digital public infrastructure, we are actually doing something like 5,000 crores a month. So the volumes that have come through this mode, we have actually touched 1 lakh crores in volumes already. And why that is happening is that, we discussed about modes of finance and, how bankers would generally look at proposals. We actually work with the very same financial system. But what has changed is the way that we present that risk, how we mitigate that risk to the bankers. how we present information in a way that it can be consumed easily by whoever wants to, take an exposure. And it's the very same banks which would probably be loath to lend earlier, who are now doing magnificent volumes on this platform.
So given the kind of exposure and the kind of experience, rather, you've had when it comes to, banking and fintech, do elucidate and elaborate a little bit on what are the innovative ways of, financing SMEs who want to adopt sustainable practices. Surely the envelope has been pushed when it comes to innovation. So what are the innovative funding or innovative financing practices that you see today at this time and place?
Sure. So in the space of supply chain, typically what's happened is, if you looked at financing before, it was always, a balance sheet-led approach, a balance sheet, a collateral security. So the whole stress was basically on looking at the financial performance of the MSME itself. And if the bank was not comfortable for whatever reason, that led to either non-financing or underfinancing directly. And now what's happened is that with the growth of digital public infrastructure, with a lot of data now coming in, whether it is GSTN or, so many other things, cash flow based data that you have, including from banks, we are now able to create a profile of that MSME without that MSME necessarily having to go to a bank and request through a, through a pro forma or whatever. And what's happened here, so one example of this is trades. Typically what's happened here is that the recourse of this finance lies actually with the buyer itself. So sir was mentioning from TAFE, about the, about the support that companies are now giving to their MSMEs. This is one example of the support. So typically what's happening here is all the MSME is doing is coming and presenting the invoice for payment. The payment would now normally happen in 45 days as per MSMED Act. And in case the corporate itself is in some financial strife, it was getting delayed and, getting complained and in so many forums. But now what happens typically is that once the banker has the comfort of the corporate concern, there is a recourse to that buyer, and without regard to the MSME's own financial standing, the financing is happening basis the corporate itself. So now we have a situation where a vendor of, say, a Tata Steel comes and puts a 1 crore invoice on the platform, and nobody is asking what is the rating of that MSME or what the balance sheet looks like, right? Or what is the collateral security that is being provided. If Tata Steel today is getting 7% in the market, then that MSME will get that invoice discounted at 7% itself, which is life-changing. Today, before this, that MSME would have probably got lent at 11%, along with collateral security and everything. So that's, I think, one major change.
No doubt, and that's a huge change, especially in the way, suppliers and SMEs go about their business. But I have to ask you, do these different solutions or these innovative solutions also help in some degree to enhance competitiveness of these SMEs within the supply chain itself? Is that something that you've seen?
Absolutely. So what's interesting is, we tend to make this about the MSME, but what's actually happened is it has made banks, corporates, and MSMEs competitive. Mm-hmm. So, for the corporates itself, what it has done is it has actually reduced the input cost, because the MSME, he was actually factoring in this cost into the invoices itself. But when he gets access to easy financing, then he's able to go about his work and, convert his business and the cycles in a much faster manner. So there, of course, there is a benefit of cost to the MSME by way of saving almost, anywhere from 25 to 100 bips on the interest rate. For the corporate, what it has meant is, in our case, this is an exchange with 60 banks and over participating. So the same corporate who is getting a bilateral lending from certain corporates is now actually getting those invoices factored on the platform and getting a differential from the bilateral itself. Mm-hmm. For banks, what it has meant is that anything done in this is a priority sector lending. So now actually what has happened is banks are getting access to PSL through other modes, other than, typically government-sponsored schemes.
Right. But I'm just curious, I have to ask you before we go ahead. What is the sense that you're picking up from the ground with regard to SMEs being open to innovation and adopting them really? Do you actually see that happening at a pace that you would like?
So I think the proof of the pudding is what we saw post-COVID. Before COVID, when everything was okay, we struggled even with this platform and with so many innovative products. no amount of cajoling even to MSMEs were really drawing them to us. But once there was COVID and there was disruption in supply chain, and in some cases nobody was able to track what's happening within that supply chain.
Right.
Then we saw a lot of adoption. So earlier, we were even judgmental about so many MSMEs that really don't want to do anything digital. But that has actually, we have been completely proved wrong. There's an enormous burst of digital business, and now, to be honest, we struggle to handle that volume.
Yeah, I think like we mentioned at the start of this event itself, so much has changed since 2020, and if there's one thing that COVID has permanently turned over, it is the way we look at supply chain and business done within. But I'm just curious, what role do you see for platforms like yours, like InvoiceSmart, when it comes to facilitating collaboration between SMEs and large enterprises, when it comes to driving sustainability initiatives within the supply chain itself? We spoke so much about hand-holding and collaboration. Do you think there are serious offerings at InvoiceSmart itself in facilitating them?
Yeah, so in fact, we have actually started taking our first steps in the last 5-6 months. And I must admit that the more we look at it, the more we know less about it. What's happening basically is that when you look at sustainability itself, one, there is a charter of, the sustainability charter and what we want to do by 2030 and the G20 and everything around that. And what businesses people want to be in and, how their MSMEs should behave, what they should procure. That's one part. And then there is a stated part. And that's the thing that we are struggling in. So today when we look at banks, most banks also have their own sustainability charter. And we find that it's quite different when we look at various banks, whether it's the MNC banks or the private banks or the PSU banks. It's fairly different in terms of what they're doing. He mentioned about getting sustainability ratings. Even that seems to be a very expensive proposition. So when we look at corporates, rating there seems to be okay.
Right.
But when we go down the line, there it's going to be difficult for MSMEs to get those ratings. So platforms like us, typically what we are currently doing is trying to understand how it's going to impact various participants in the system. It's not only about MSMEs, it's about the banks, it's about the corporates and the whole ecosystem. And then we are trying to see if you can digitize aspects of that on the platform.
Absolutely.
So for example, today if HSBC Bank were to say to me that, hey, we are keen on doing EV, and within EV we want to do this particular subsegment, then for me to go and show HSBC Bank that Mr. Kumaran has a business which is within that subsegment and is an EV invoice, is a task. So the innovation comes there.
Right.
We are trying to tie the corporate, the need of the bank and the MSME, and then, bring in the rating agencies.
Right.
And put the whole bouquet together and, give it in a way that can be consumed.
Right. I just have to ask you before I actually open the floor for questions. If you had a crystal ball and you were looking into it and seeing what the future looked like on the innovation front when it came to innovative financing, when it came to TREDs, when it came to, each supplier really finding place in the supply chain from a sustainability and an innovation technology perspective, how good is the future looking really?
So, purely from a sustainability perspective, it's important that sustainability sustains. Okay. And that will probably drive how businesses react to that. But broadly speaking, around innovation and all the other things that you mentioned, we are seeing an enormous uprise in volumes and in adaptation itself. To give you a sense of the kind of volumes we are put up against, we are about 120 odd employees. We are now serving 1,000 cities. Right, and this 120 employees has everybody. It has our sales guys, it has our operations, it has everybody. And the volume just doesn't let go. It's increasing, on a quarter-on-quarter basis.
Right.
So if I were to look at a crystal ball, I think I need a much larger crystal ball.
Because that's the kind of optimism in the air, no doubt. And I think that's a very healthy way forward, really, in terms of adoption of digital practices in the interest of sustainability itself. Mr. Sankaran, before I let you go, I think it's time to involve our audience in a round of questions as well. Like always, ladies and gentlemen, do raise your hands. I'll pick up a few questions from the audience. Please keep it brief. Please end with a question mark. Do we have a question? Yes, the gentleman at the far end of the hall. Yes, we'll have a mic brought to you, sir. Go ahead, sir.
So this is a question to Mr. Shankaran. How do you see INR
Can you speak up a little bit, please? Yes.
Okay, so how do you see INR as a currency in your platform? Like, do you see a role for FX in your platform?
So, so far as our platform is concerned, this is actually a regulated entity. And it is currently in the space of only domestic factoring, domestic invoice discounting. But having seen the success of this platform and how quickly it's getting adapted in corporate India, as well as MSMEs, now, you know, the scope has increased. You would be aware that the ITFS business has recently been opened in Gift City, and that's aiming to do export factoring. So now I expect that a lot of these products, including the FX and other products, will also join, either through this platform or through other novel innovations.
And no, I think the export story of India overall itself is something that's quite wonderfully panned out in recent times. Do we have another question from members of the audience? Yes, Mr. Chandra Mohan. Can we have a mic right up in front, please? Right here. Right here, yes. Go ahead, sir.
Shankaran, I just want to know whether the public sector corporations, are they in your threads, number one? Public sector
corporations, are they part of trends?
Number two, in my various forums in CI and all that, sometimes I've heard that the corporates don't pay on time still. We pay on time, that's a different story.
Is payment timeline an issue?
But I just want to know, you know, this, I won't say criticism, but this concern, I've heard it from several MSMEs. So are the people able to pay as per the regulation on the 45th day, or at least before, let's say, 50 days?
So, is payment an issue? Do you face that problem?
Yeah, I guess that's why we are existent to some degree. But to answer the first question, PSUs, central PSUs and PSCs, it's compulsory to onboard on this. Any company with a turnover over 500 crores also has to compulsorily onboard on a TREDS platform. Regarding payment, you know, it's so much to do with liquidity of the company. So we have companies which are very liquid for maybe 7 months, and then for 5 months they use TREDS. So it's all over the place. But generally speaking, a lot of MSMEs are not coming to us only because of this 45-day payment thing. The advantage with TREDS is that once the corporate accepts that invoice, they can get the payment within 24 hours. They don't need to wait till the 45th day when the corporate will pay. So the corporate will just pay the discounting bank.
All right. Does the corporate pay you on time?
So in our initial 5 years of existence, there was actually a nil NPS on the platform, to put it like that.
That's a wonderful stat to go forth with. Ma'am, I believe you have a question. Yes.
Yes, sir. This is Madhubala Nahar. I'm director of the company called Ad Bureau Advertising Private Limited. I'm going to put up a question to you, which I don't know whether you know the answer or not, but I'm sure you will. This is something which will make you feel very proud. I just read Forbes magazine, which gave ranks of all the banks in the world, in the top 10. Now, do you know where is HSBC ranking in this Forbes magazine?
Unfortunately, no. I'm not from HSBC, but I'll be happy to know. Yeah.
Sir, I told you, you will not know. But when I give you the answer, you'll feel so proud. HSBC is ranking on number 8 and HDFC on number 10. This is world ranking, sir, and we feel very proud of you.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
No doubt, no doubt. Absolutely. That's a wonderful statistic. I believe the gentleman at the back has a question. Can we have the mic? I'll come to you in a bit, sir. Okay, you know what? Let's give sir the mic. Yeah, go ahead and ask your question. I'll come to you in just a bit, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Very good evening, sir. I'm Chandru, COO of USP Packaging Solutions. We are dealing with coding and marking devices. My question to you is, I have been approached by the firm, what you tell about, and the cost implications once we raise the invoice and send it to any corporate who is having a turnover of over 500 crores or what you XYZ figures. The implication is once we raise the invoice, we pay the GST component on it. And we pay it in full. And whereas once a corporate accepts our invoice, it took 30 days. And that invoice passed on to you on the 31st day. By the time my payment terms is already over. And after that, you approach me saying that if we want it within 24 hours, 7% will be the cut on my total invoice value. Where will I end up?
Okay. So, let me answer this question from the design perspective, actually. So, the way the program has been designed, actually doesn't have to do much with GST or cuts or whatever. Typically, what happens on the platform is that either the MSME or the corporate concerned, they upload the invoice. We won't be privy as to what stage that invoice is currently. We would only be privy to whether the corporate has given an acceptance or not. The moment that corporate gives acceptance to that, then it becomes an instrument on the platform, and then it is shown to all the banks. So honestly, we won't even know, where you are in that stage of that transaction. We would only be looking at it as a financial instrument, which is for consumption of the banks as a priority sector lending, and with proper acceptance from the corporate. Probably what happens is the practice may be different in different corporates. So we would see all varieties of what you're saying, right from day 1 to day 45. But in a live platform, it will be virtually impossible for us to, even see that. Because there'll be crores of transactions going through. We would have no idea who is a buyer, who is a seller, what was the GST, what was the date.
All right. I believe Sir in the back had a question. Gentleman in the blazer, second last row on my left. Yes. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. So my name is Sabyasachi Biswal. I am the head of operation of AIF, where we are funding to the SMEs. So in fact, we are doing both debt and equity, and over the period of time, we are experiencing the debt recovery is challenge for all of us, even for the banker or like the asset manager like us. Do you think there is any scope of government involvement or regulations in that? If is, then what are these?
It's a tough question for me to answer as a platform. I just represent all the banks. But as per my experience, I feel, anything that you do on innovation, it doesn't change, the underlying of an asset itself, right? If an asset is inherently risky, then it is risky. Just making it digital won't make it less risky. What can make it less risky is giving more information on that asset and allowing the banker to take, a more informed call on that. And then try and see if we can reduce the pricing around that also in a way that is useful to the buyer. But in terms of government role, there's really none in that, right? It's basically who is underwriting that, and do they feel that, from a risk perspective, is it worth underwriting? At best, what can be done is you can increase the types of underwriters. So if you look at what has happened on trades, we started with banks, and we found that banks were not very keen to lend, in the triple B and unrated category. So most of the funding we saw was mostly on the A- and above. And now the Reserve Bank has opened up NBFCs as an additional class. So what's going to happen is that there are going to be different types of financiers, and maybe we can start with NBFC factors. That list is endless. Someday we might end up with peer-to-peer lending. But so far as the risk underlying in a business, I don't think that will ever change, or anyone can give any assurance around that. The risk is underlying in a business.
What's life or business without a bit of risk? I can take one last question. Does anyone have anything to ask? All right, nobody. Then I have a question of my own. Digital marketplace, what's the future like, especially given so much has changed in the last 3 years? Do you think that this pace of change and innovation will continue unabated?
Yes, I don't know if it will be called digital marketplace because the whole world may be a digital marketplace then. But yeah, it's going to continue. If you look broadly at what's happening even within the country, you know, Udyam is now getting integrated with a lot of marketplaces.
Absolutely.
Including ours. GSTN, e-invoicing, you know, then these account aggregators. So a lot of information is now getting available very quickly. So sometimes, you know, I worry as a digital platform whether, you know, we will exist in this form a few years down the line. So my feeling is that this digital journey is here to stay. How everyone is going to be relevant in this journey is important. We all have to kind of reinvent ourselves.
I guess even as AI and digitization take form and shape, I think we can focus on the finer things in life. And hopefully that will make us as happy as we hope to be in the future. On that note, thank you, Mr. Sankran, for sharing your thoughts on innovation and sustainable business practices. Great having you with us. Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, as we draw the curtains on this enlightening masterclass, let us carry forward the knowledge and inspiration that we've gained today as catalysts for positive change in our respective spheres. The journey towards sustainable growth and empowerment is an ongoing process, and each one of us plays a vital role in shaping a better future. I would once again like to thank HSBC for this remarkable initiative. Let's continue to collaborate, innovate, and lead by example, ensuring that our actions today pave the way for a better and brighter tomorrow. I'd also like to notify you all once again that registrations for the SME Champion Awards are open. Like I said, you can visit our website, cnbctv18.com, and participate in the various categories that have been listed there. On that note, thank you all for your active participation, and I hope we keep the momentum going beyond these four walls. Please join us for dinner and have a wonderful night. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much.